Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Take a seat, guys. There's lots of space in the front. Come forward. No? I see a lot of people standing in the back. So yeah, my name is Meinhard. I'm the founder of SatoshiPay, a company you might have heard of. We are in the space for 7 years already, and we've been building different products on different blockchains. And now it's time for us to build our own blockchain, and it does totally make sense, especially in 2021. Things have changed. You're not building from scratch anymore, and that's what my presentation is about. So, do we really need a chain? Well, chains are fun, so yes, let's build a chain, of course. The motivation for this is that we wanted to build an automated market maker on Stellar. So Stellar is our network of choice for quite some time already, simply because it does what it says on the tin already for many years. It's a network that's live for many years as well, very stable, and kind of has very simple atomic operations built on chain, including token support and multi-signature. They don't require smart contracts, they're really in the protocol, and it has relatively fast ledger times, and closing times and finality is reached within 5 or 6 seconds. And it's very well connected to fiat on and off ramps, and also other real world assets mapped to Stellar as assets. That's why we work with Stellar a lot, and we have close connections to the Stellar Foundation as well. They invested in SatoshiPay in the past, and they are supporting us left and right, so they're really great supporters. And but yeah, automated market making until recently was not possible. So yeah, smart contracts are needed for this, or to have different types of automated market makers and to kind of evolve those, you need smart contracts. And automated market makers are not the only thing we want. We want maybe also support NFTs and have smart contracts interacting with these NFTs through some oracles. So yeah, we need smart contracts for sure. And there's something called the Stellar Tuning Signing Server, the TSS. It has certain limitations, especially in scalability. You can only execute one smart contract or one operation in one block or one milestone. No, sorry, one ledger, which is about 5 or 6 seconds. So that's a severe limitation to that one. So yeah, what should we do? Should we build a chain from scratch? And hell no. I mean, that's a huge effort, and we've seen many projects doing that over the years, and you know, they often go somewhere and not many people use them, so it's a huge effort, and then in the end it might be in vain. So that's why we don't build from scratch. Because yeah, you have to build a consensus mechanism, you have to build up a network of nodes, you have to build a community around it. So it's a huge task to build a chain, and we already have a few thousand out in the world, so we don't actually need another one from scratch, at least from a technical perspective. So yeah, these days the frameworks have arrived, so you can sort of plug and play, or kind of like Lego building blocks, build your own chain together using a framework. And we have analyzed a few. So there's first of all the Parity Substrate framework, and also the Polygon SDK. Also there's a Cosmos framework, but at the time when we looked at it, it wasn't really quite where we wanted it. The same actually for the Polygon SDK. It's not really what we needed it to roll out into production at the time. A few months ago, about 6 months ago, we started researching this. But Substrate was already quite developed, and the Substrate auctions were about to start. The networks that were running on Substrate, or that are the big networks, Polkadot and also the Kusama network, were already live with many blocks, and so we decided to go for Substrate. So it's mature, asterisk, and tested. So it's not mature. I mean, obviously it's still in rapid development. So documentation here and there is not complete, and some things don't work as expected. But generally, it's a good base to build on, also to build out, because obviously we also contribute to Substrate by building extensions and kind of giving bug reports and these kind of things, and contributing potentially also to the core code. So it comes with batteries included. So what does that mean? It has proof of stakes. You can kind of almost pick your own proof of stake. It has the peer-to-peer networking built in as just a component of the framework. Smart contracts, different smart contract languages are even supported, and some tooling around it. So tooling is quite important. I'll get into that in a second. So you have the WebAssembly, WASM, as the main sort of engine virtual machine that runs the code. And there are different languages that compile to WASM, so that's pretty cool. And you also have the Substrate UI, which is awesome. It comes with an Explorer and dev tools, and that's something you don't need to build. If we would use or build our own chain, we have to build all this from scratch. But this comes as a community, and you can sort of just plug in, spin up your node, and then connect the Substrate UI to your node or your network, and yeah, you can already start building very quickly. So it's really very fast to have an upstart. So, and then there's the great thing of parachains. You've probably heard of it. It's essentially once you become a parachain, and the process is quite difficult to become a parachain, but you can deploy on many nodes, and I think it's a few thousand at the moment, instantly. So you have a new chain, and you can connect to a network of many, many nodes around the world, and have it decentralized essentially from day one. So that's pretty awesome. And yeah, there's auctions, so-called auctions. You have to get people to stake on your auction, and it's around maybe 30 to 50 million euros that you have to stake in Kusama. It's a huge overhead, but it's kind of worth it. And also people that are staking, obviously, they get some rewards for that, so it's a huge incentive, but you have to mobilize the community, and that's kind of a huge task in itself. But yeah, there's a huge upside. So you have, as I said already, the node network, and you have a community, you have visibility, you have the credibility also from parity or from the Polkadot ecosystem. Once you win a parachain auction, there's huge upsides. And sort of a sister project of ours, recently the Picasso network became a parachain. It's like an instant boost in every regard when it comes to a new blockchain. So, how did we start? We started with some research and preparation, and yeah, we looked at the Substrate framework and Polkadot. That was the decision, as I mentioned, quite quickly. We saw this as the most mature, and also it does help. We are based in Berlin, most of us, and my flat is about 50 meters from the Parity office, so I sometimes meet people over coffee. It's pretty cool. So like there's kind of also a physical distance, and also we know these guys, some of them are Ethereum co-founders from the very early days of Ethereum as well in the Berlin scene. It's kind of really connected, and it really does help. If you know people, you trust them, they know us, and yeah, so it's pretty tightly knit community in Berlin regarding that. So, but then there's this whole thing, you have to learn Rust. Our tech team started learning Rust. It's a cool language. But you also have to learn the Substrate framework, obviously. But again, the reward is quite high on that. And then you have the framework. You can just add your POS, your proof of stake that you want. Your voting mechanism essentially, and you can add smart contracts and then launch the network. So that's at least the promise. And yeah, you can build a network node from scratch. From scratch, from templates. So essentially, it comes with a standard template. You can just adjust, switch it on, and run it. It's pretty awesome. And yeah, but then of course, build failed, build failed, build failed. You have to tweak a little bit, and then suddenly you have a successful build, and you have your development node running, and you can connect to it with the Substrate UI straight away with the standardized interface. You can even use a Substrate UI that's hosted by someone else and point it to your development node. It's all running in the browser, and it's pretty cool. And then you have a number of plugins, or so-called plugins. They're called palettes. And that's a huge extension architecture that's built into the Substrate framework. So, and there's also an ecosystem of these palettes that's quite rapidly developing, obviously, because it's a young space that's seeing a lot of growth at the moment. And there are some predefined palettes for proof of stake or other consensus mechanisms. Just the simple unit of a block also is a palette, and you have asset support. Just external assets from other chains maybe, or other things apart from your own mainnet tokens. You can issue different assets, and then there's ink. So ink is essentially the solidity of the parachain or of the Substrate world, and it's a language that's very similar to Rust, and it's used to write smart contracts on Substrate. then you have these so-called self-defined pallets, and you can use them, for example, to build bridges to other chains. And that's what we did. We built a bridge to Stella, like an initial version of it, a prototype that's already live. You can see it online. There's videos about it. It's already working. And adjusting of these pallets is quite easy. They have parameters, and there's also templates for this again. So it's really quite easy. It reminds me in a way of building a content management system, or even like WordPress. It is very, very different in that sense from centralized to decentralized. But the ecosystem and community is really kind of similar, or functions in a similar way. Yeah, so and then next step, you have your framework, and you have it adjusted, and then you start your dev node. And it's just a simple command like this. Cargo is sort of the package manager, and you run it, you release it, and then a few parameters, and then your node is running. It's pretty cool. And also, again, we have documentation online on how to do that with our repository. We have like a GitHub repository that contains all our code. And then next step was building a Stella bridge, or like it could be a bridge to any other chain, because the idea, especially for our project, is to bridge as many blockchains as possible, but starting with Stella, because that's where we have the know-how, community, and also we have trust in that chain in certain aspects. So these bridges are built as off-chain workers, because you adding functionality that's beyond the chain operations. That means you want to have asynchronous tasks, essentially meaning that they take longer than one block. So they cannot be done within the block time, and that's why they're asynchronous. And they can also fail. So these operations can just not work, or sometimes work, just kind of be a bit messy. In a block, you want to have everything always being executed in the same way. So in that sense, they are non-deterministic. This makes them ideal for HTTP requests, for example. So your chain or your node can make HTTP requests. For example, like an oracle, check states on different chains, or check prices, check the weather, check the moon phase. So all these things can be done through these off-chain workers. And also like a deposit and withdrawal from the Stella network. That's something that we would then observe as a HTTP request from an Explorer, or like an Explorer API, and kind of base operations on that. So meaning, it functions like an oracle. And for the case of the Stella bridge, the monitor, the worker is monitoring the account, and that summarizes the off-chain workers. And then there's also a thing called the chain operations, or the chain components, and they are always deterministic. This is the kind of built-in parts into each block, or each new ledger state. And this means that all the nodes arrive at the same state on execution. So that makes them deterministic. So those are the two different operations you can run on the chain, on Substrate. And next step is enabling smart contracts. And for that, essentially, we have two alternatives that we looked at. First of all, I mentioned already Ink, that compiles to WASM. And then we have Solidity, that's used in EVM, and the Ethereum virtual machine. And we wanted to support ideally both. So we're looking at Solidity compilers to WASM, because WASM is going to be the one that's essentially going to be executed in the end on the chain. So, and we want to have a broad compatibility to smart contracts and make it easy for people to port the protocols to our chain, and that's why we intend to support both. But the support for Ink is already there because it comes out of the box. So we can use both in parallel via pallets, but also if we are a parachain, we can just use other parachains to offload executions to another chain. So that's another example of how powerful this parachain concept is. And as I said here, so other parachains can help with the execution of EVM code or even other WASM code. So it's really, it becomes part of, or you can make these other chains part of your network as well if you want. And This is not really visible. Okay, so the substrate UI comes also with a smart contract configuration tool. You can deploy a smart contract with an upload on the browser. You just kind of dump machine code there or virtual machine code and upload it, and then you can tweak the parameters or the input arguments with this interface if you were to see it. Yeah, it's just like essentially fields, and you can edit them and click them, and then also execute them on buttons and kind of see what they do. And you also have an account viewer that's built in. Also, you don't see much here, but yeah, very much like a block explorer. You can also go to individual accounts and look at the balances. Even if you have the private key for these accounts, you can also make transactions from there. So it's really an ideal tool to build on top. Yeah, so next is, and that's what we're working on at the moment, is to build a testnet. So we have the individual dev node that was easy to deploy, but now we kind of need to make them interact with each other. And the goals for the testnet are to have a dynamic network, including discovery, and also make the bridges more decentralized, because currently the bridge is one Oracle testing one web server, like remotely. So that's very faulty or can be faulty easily. And so to decentralize this, you have like different oracles voting on what they see on other chains, and then kind of make it more decentralized that way. Also to introduce gas fees, kind of to make the network run, because currently all the operations are free. And that's another thing that comes with the testnet. And also we will have a faucet that issues testnet tokens so people can play around with it. Currently, yeah, you have to know someone that has some tokens for the dev node, and then you can start playing around. And also, of course, to get external developers involved. So get people to build on our chain. And yeah, we can only do that once we have our own testnet running. So the challenges that we are facing, and these are not just related to the testnet, but with the project in general. So we want to avoid MEV attacks, and that's like kind of an not unsolved, but it's kind of a hard nut to crack. There's different approaches to that, and in our white paper we go kind of into detail with that. And also we have for the Stellar bridge certain limitations. The number of co-signers and the numbers of trust lines that you can have for accounts are kind of limiting whatever we want to do there, and we have to kind of work around that, or even ask Stellar to slightly change the protocol. But yeah, and with a bit of creativity, that can all be solved. And also, yeah, to support ERC20 tokens and other native tokens. So Substrate doesn't really have a standard yet for having not a token standard. There's no ERC20 standard established yet. There's a few proposals, but we will also work on optimizing these proposals and standardizing and using them and developing them, and also advertising them. Obviously, if you have a testnet, you want to enable the nodes to have outgoing, incoming transactions. So that's kind of the very first step to interlink these nodes. And you want to have node discovery. So one node is fired up and kind of automatically discovers the network around it, and finds other nodes and kind of connects automatically. That's something you want, and we're working on at the moment. One shortcut to that is to link into the Kusama testnet. So sort of behaving like a parachain already before we are even a parachain. So you can be a solo chain, and you can be a parachain, and you can also have something that's sort of in the middle, which is a para-thread. And those are just different in the way kind of parachain and para-thread in the cost structures. A solo chain is completely disconnected from the whole network, and you have to build up your own node infrastructure. And so that's why solo chains are kind of the harder battle to pick. Obviously, establishing consensus, and again, with being a parachain or like a testnet parachain, we have the validation of the existing network already. So we're that most likely gonna connect also to the Kusama testnet quite soon. Yeah, so there's always just days left before the testnet goes live, and also now it's kind of days left before the network goes live. So yeah, stay tuned for a blog post. We will document all this. We are an open source project, and yeah, we already are documenting also our research and the different approaches to things. So that's part of our mission to kind of also educate developers and other people building blockchains on how our progress, and that's sort of our commitment, our open source commitment that we have. This is supposed to be one line. So yeah, the project that I'm talking about obviously is called Pendulum Chain, and this is the Twitter account pendulum_. I don't know why that broke, but Pendulum Chain is the handle, and if you Google Pendulum Chain, you'll find it, pendulumchain.org. And just yesterday we announced the closure of our pre-sale. So we're really doing this now, and we have the funds to do it. And next step essentially is getting the token out, but also at the same time building out the network, the testnet, the mainnet, parachain auction, parachain. So yeah, the journey has started essentially yesterday. So this is the first time that I'm publicly speaking about this. At this pre-sale especially. And yeah, that's it from me. This is hard to read. Usually this is on the black, Meinhard with 2R. And thanks very much. Questions?